Breaking tonight, newly released emails about the Clinton Foundation are leading to some serious new allegations. Suggestions that the foundation was collecting favors set up during Mrs. Clinton's time at State. And tonight, a former Justice Department lawyer is telling us the new revelations suggest some legal lines may have been crossed. Good evening and welcome to the Kelly File, everyone. I'm Megyn Kelly. New details emerging now after a federal court ordered the release of more emails from Clinton's private server. These are documents recovered by the FBI that Mrs. Clinton may have tried to destroy. And they are just the latest drip in what's becoming a steady stream of troubling messages between Hillary Clinton's family charity and her State Department staffers, who appear to be very cozy. The messages lend credence to the notion that there are wealthy donors who paid top dollars for favors from America's top diplomat, while ordinary Americans were left to fend for themselves if they wanted access. Even Mrs. Clinton seems to admit this doesn't look good.
My work as Secretary of State was not influenced by any outside forces. I made policy decisions based on what I thought was right. I know there's a lot of smoke and there's no fire.
In moments, we'll speak with former Justice Department lawyer Shannon Coffin, who says there are potential violations here of at least 3 federal laws. But first, we go to Trace Gallagher at our breaking news desk with the details from these new messages. Trace?
And Megyn, if you're connecting dots, this latest round of emails appears to draw a bold line directly between the Clinton Foundation and Hillary Clinton's inner circle while she was Secretary of State. The emails were given to ABC News by the conservative group Citizens United. In one exchange from 2010, top Clinton Foundation official Doug Band and Hillary Clinton's closest aide, Huma Abedin, talk about special seating for an upcoming State Department lunch with Chinese President Hu Jintao. Doug Band even names names, including the president of UBS Wealth Management, Bob McCann, Western Union CEO Hikmet Ersek, and Rockefeller Foundation President Dr. Judith Rodin. A later email specifically requested that Rodin be seated at Vice President Joe Biden's table, to which Huma Abedin responded, quote, "I'll ask." For the record, UBS had given the Clinton Foundation between $500,000 and $1 million. Western Union between $1 million. The Rockefeller $25 million. When asked about the Clinton Foundation trying to get prime seats to a lunch for a foreign dignitary, the State Department said it, quote, does not believe it is inappropriate. The Clinton campaign called Citizens United a right-wing group trying to make something out of nothing. And on ABC's This Week, the interim chair of the Democratic National Committee, Donna Brazile, seemed to acknowledge that giving big donors access is just part of the process. Watch.
This notion that somehow or another, someone who is a supporter, someone who's a donor, somebody who's an activist saying, I want access, I want to come into a room and I want to meet people. We often criminalize behavior that is normal, and I don't see what the smoke is.
Again, the smoke comment. The State Department says it did not. Megyn.
Shannon Coffin, former Justice Department Assistant Deputy Attorney General under President George W. Bush and a former Chief Legal Counsel to Vice President Dick Cheney. Shannon, good to see you. So,
Hi,
I mean, Donna Brazile, you got to hand it to her on the honesty front. You know, I like Donna Brazile, but it's not going to fly with the American people to say, look, everyone is bought off, you know, like your donors give you lots of money so they get access the American people don't get invited to the State Department and get to rub elbows with power and set themselves up for future success in a way regular Americans don't. That's just a system we have to live with. You say it's actually not that simple. It actually might be criminal.
Well, look, their claim is there's only smoke, but lots of people die from smoke inhalation. So smoke is a problem here. And there are, look, in addition to what Trace discussed, we saw emails last week that the Crown Prince of Bahrain was found that the state had prevented him from doing so, and the same channel. It was
well,
Doug
and this again, you see it very clearly. Here, Trace just took us through it, where you got the guy from the Clinton Foundation, Doug Band, specifically sending the people he wants to see at this this luncheon, for the China State luncheon, and gives 3 names, and then he asks about this one person in particular, saying, can we get her at Biden's table? And Hoover writes back, I'll ask. I mean, it's obvious. This is what Trump has been trying to tap into, saying she's bought and paid for. She owes so many favors to so many people who've donated to her foundation that you can never get an honest judgment from her, because it's all about repaying the people who paid her. You say it actually may be criminal. Why would you go that far?
Look, there's a back door here that normal citizens don't have. If you're into the Clinton Foundation, you're more likely to get access to Hillary Clinton at the State Department. And there are at least 3 different categories of federal laws which may be implicated. One, the Ethics in Government Act, which says you can't use a public office for private gain for yourself or even for a charity. The law says specifically a charity that you're associated with. So in giving special access to the donors for the Clinton government is their job.
If you're talking about a private gain, how does she gain?
But that's not what the law requires. It doesn't require that money go into Hillary's pocket. It could be enough that her husband gets speaking engagements.
It
could be enough, which happened. It could be enough that the foundation with her name on it gets more money.
All right, I know the second one that you're focused on, potential law here, is the bribery, the anti-bribery laws. How could that be violated?
Well, look, this is the hardest group of statutes to prove. You have to have a quid pro quo. You have to, and we've seen in a recent case involving the former governor say not be enough to violate those statutes. But I will tell you this: the federal government, if the shoe were on the other foot here, and a U.S. company were giving money to a foreign charity that was associated with the foreign secretary, the Polish Secretary of State, the U.S. government will prosecute the U.S. government will prosecute that U.S. company, and that's exactly what we have here. That's called the Foreign Practices Act, but that's based on the U.S. bribery laws. So for the people who are seeking access to Hillary, giving money to the charity, their prosecution of those givers, okay? Now, whether or not that Hillary Clinton can get reached by those laws, there's a lot more facts that have to be developed.
It's unbelievable. When you see the tentacles of the Clinton Foundation and how dicey this was for her.
But let's talk about the foundation.
Quickly, go ahead.
The foundation could be a foreign agent for the Prince of Bahrain. When the foundation says he's our friend, can you get a meeting with Hillary Clinton? And Huma says Friday at 10 a.m. That the foundation itself could be an unregistered foreign agent. Whenever a foreign agent, when an agent for a foreign government or a foreign company goes before the U.S. government and seeks favors, that person is supposed to register with the Justice Department.
I got it. So
that certainly
and they're not
didn't
supposed to
happen
go
here.
do the bidding of at our State Department. Shannon, great to see you.
Good to see you too, Megan.
I mean, you get it, right? It's like complex, and this is why many people just leave it to the side and don't bother. But you understand what was happening, right? I mean, was it improper? Did it have the appearance of impropriety? And was it potentially illegal? Those are all fair game questions in an election for the presidency. Meantime, a new poll suggests that this foundation story is becoming bigger. In the latest Monmouth survey, 54% say that Mrs. Clinton gave special treatment to foundation donors. They believe she did. David Wohl's an attorney. Richard Fowler's a nationally syndicated radio talk show host and a senior fellow at the New Leaders Council. Good to see you both. Richard,
good to see you, Megan.
What do you make? Why is the Clinton Foundation telling Hillary's right-hand woman who they want at this lunch and where they should be seated?
Sadly, Megan, this is what you call the same old Washington politics. Whether you're Democrats or Republicans, people play connections in different states, in different departments, into the White House. It happens all the time. We saw Halliburton had no bid contracts during the Iraq War. This is the same old Washington politics, which is where I agree with Donna Brazil. If we want to end that, we take the corporate money out of our politics and we solve that problem.
They do. The American people do want to end that.
But before we go and penalize the Clinton Global Fund for the Clinton Foundation, what they've been able to do, let's talk about all the good things they've done, right? There's millions and millions of women and girls.
I'm conceding that point for the purposes of this discussion. That's a dodge, Richard. That's a dodge.
No, but
we're not talking about whether the Clinton Foundation did good things. Clinton
did not.
To get donations to it, which is not allowed. Go ahead, David.
Megan, it's clear that upon being confirmed as Secretary of State, Hillary Clinton wasted no time in converting the State Department into a full-fledged business partner of the Clinton Foundation. Are you kidding me? There was so much corruption, so much pay to play. What is the proof, Megan? I'll tell you the proof is the UBS case. Took place in 2009, right after her confirmation. They came up to her and they said, look, the IRS wants the detailed information of all of our people with offshore accounts. Can you kind of help us with that?
Yeah, they didn't want to reveal that. UBS was like, no.
She gets that cut out, and what happens right after she takes care of that problem, that UBS donates 10 times as much money to the Clinton Foundation, and suddenly Bill Clinton gets this lucrative contract. $1.5 million is with who? UBS.
That's absurd.
It's quid pro quo at its very worst.
He's right.
And it's prosecutable under not just
Richard, that happened. The Journal reported on this extensively at the time.
There's a couple problems in David's analysis. Number one, but Hillary Clinton has no power over the IRS whatsoever. Number two, and more importantly, the fact just because her husband got a speaking not implicated in anything.
Not to mention the fact
the polls are already starting to show that Donald Trump is moving up in the polls, and it's in large part because of this.
I don't know what polls you're talking about,
but
okay. In the all the polls show that Hillary Clinton is ahead sizably, number one, and number two, and more. Number two, and more importantly, is that Donald Trump has more problems than than O.J. Simpson when it comes to run for being president of the United States. So there you have it.
I'm going to have to digest that.
Come on,
I thought you were going for like more issues than a magazine rag. That would have been easier.
I was trying. I was trying for a good analogy.
Okay. Great to see you both. So there are also some new dramatic questions tonight about what some call the original campaign promise from Donald Trump.
We're going to build the wall, and who's going to pay for that wall? Who?
Is that wall already crumbling right in front of our very eyes? Governor Mike Huckabee is next on that. Plus, one of the NFL's highest paid quarterbacks sparks major backlash for refusing to stand for our national anthem. And tonight he is threatening a new protest, and he is not alone. Plus, America today lost a beloved actor, and we'll have a special moment for the man who brought to life Willy Wonka.
Come with me, and you'll be in a world of pure imagination. Hey, hello, and you'll see into your imagination.
There are 15 weekends this summer.
The Trump campaign is engaging in a new round of damage control on the issue of immigration, after reports suggest the candidate may be backtracking on his plans to build a wall on the southern border. This is obviously a critical issue for Trump supporters.
I will build a great wall on our southern border, and I will have Mexico pay for that wall. Mark my words. Build that wall. We're going to build that wall. Don't worry about it. We're going to build that wall. We're going to build the wall. And who's going to pay for that wall? Who? They think we're kidding too, don't they, folks, huh? We're not kidding. We're not kidding.
Well, with Trump's much-awaited speech on immigration scheduled to happen just 48 hours from right now, we're now hearing new questions about whether that wall he has so proudly promised is actually going to be a real wall. First, Trump supporter and former Texas Governor Rick Perry was suggesting last month that it's a, quote, technological and, quote, digital wall. And today, Trump confidant Rudy Giuliani was suggesting it may be a little bit of both.
He's going to build a wall. It's going to be a technological as well as a physical wall, meaning...
We hear 35 feet high with wall technology.
And with technology that can detect people 5-6 miles away.
Chief political correspondent Carl Cameron is live for us tonight in San Francisco. Carl?
Hi, Megan. And it is the case that Donald Trump has said that much of what he enunciates on the campaign trail could ultimately be viewed as a bargaining position because he's going to make deals and get things done. And in fact, he himself has said that the wall in some places wouldn't be practical because there's topography problems, lots of mountains that make it difficult to build a wall, and that technology would be much more better suited to work in those situations. And those are the sorts of asides that he has offered in the past in his unscripted, untelepromptered remarks about immigration reform. The Wednesday speech now has that added to the list of questions because over the course of the last 2.5 to 3 weeks, Donald Trump has been particularly cautious in his rhetoric and put an awful lot of pressure on his surrogates to explain exactly what's going to happen on the other two sort of foundational points of his immigration policy. One, he's already revised his proposal for a ban on new Muslim visitors or immigrants to the U.S. On a temporary basis. That's now turned into extreme vetting. And then comes the question of what to do about the undocumented immigrants who are in this country, the illegal immigrants that he's promised to deport with a deportation force. And on that, the question is still open, and many of his advisors have suggested that that softened rhetoric that he talked about Sean Hannity with could make it possible for some illegal immigrants to stay in this country, albeit not with a legalization. For that, they'd have to go home. All of these are questions that we presume will be answered on Wednesday when he'll go to Phoenix for a teleprompter speech to deal with what are questions that may court independent swing voters. At the same time, they alienate the very Republican base that came to love him in the early part of this when he made this type of tough immigration reform really the signature of his campaign. Megan?
Carl, thank you. Joining me now, former GOP presidential candidate, Governor Mike Huckabee. Governor, good to see you. So what is the point of surrogates coming out and talking about, why not just stick with he's going to build a wall? Why is anybody injecting, well, it's going to be a technological wall here, it's going to be a virtual wall there?
Well, the only thing I can say is, Megan, sometimes surrogates go out and they forget that they're not the candidate, and they may make a statement,
but this surrogate is the former governor of Texas.
Or the candidate.
He knows better than most.
Rick Perry used to talk a lot about the fact that a good bit of the wall on the Texas side of the border would be, in fact, electronic. If you've been to the border, and I think you have, and I've been to the San Diego border and to the Texas border, there are some places where a physical wall fence is very, very significant. The best one that we have is the one around San Diego. It's the one that stopped illegal immigration by 90% since it was built. It's been tremendous. It's not only physical, it is also electronic. So it's not an either or, it's a both
so
and.
It's like so implied. When people say that, so what is the need to sort of come out and tweak the issue just as Trump is getting poked himself for softening the issue of what we're going to do with the 11 million illegal immigrants? Is this all about outreach to so-called moderates or people who aren't already on the Trump train?
Yeah, I don't think the surrogates are serving Donald Trump very well if they try to undermine his basic message, which is the wall. But the bigger picture here, and I think a lot of people are losing sight of this, is that there is a real clear choice in the issue of immigration. Donald Trump is going to build a wall. Donald Trump is going to end sanctuary cities. Donald Trump is going to make sure that we have a clear direction about who's coming into this country. Hillary Clinton is for sanctuary cities. She's for open borders. She's going to be the Angela Merkel of the United States. I think it's pretty clear that if you want open borders and sanctuary cities, you go with Hillary. If you want strong borders and if you want someone to actually enforce our laws, you want Donald Trump. That's what it's going to come down to. And what the surrogates say, it's not going to make that much difference.
Mm-hmm. Governor, great to see you. With all due respect to yourself as a surrogate.
Thanks a bunch.
Also with us on this tonight, Ben Domenech, publisher of The Federalist. Ben, good to see you. So, I don't know. You tell me whether this is just a coincidence or whether this is a message that was intentionally put out there to would-be Trump voters who are like, he's too hardline.
You know, I'm really not sure that there was a lot of thought put into this from the perspective of the sloganeering, but this is an example of slogans running smack into a brick wall of their own, in the sense that the slogan of building the wall sounds very nice, but if you've been along the border, as I have with Texas Senator John Cornyn back in the day, you know that the topography there actually is challenging when it comes to building a wall. In fact, much of the issue is the fact that about half the border, which is made up of the Rio Grande in Texas, would be a situation where if you built a wall there that was as high and as significant as the one that Trump has described,
30
it
feet.
would cut off Texas landowners to the access to the water there.
And
that's something that I think really would prevent it.
And that's what Rick Perry was saying. He said that there's some that hear this is going to be 1,200 miles from Brownsville to El Paso, 30 foot high, and listen, I know you can't do that, but the question is whether we are seeing an overall softening, whether it's, you know, in combination. If this were just sort of a one-off, you say, okay, it's a clarification of what exactly the wall is. But it comes on the heels of Trump saying to Hannity last week, there's going to be a softening. And then he kind of tried to dial it back, but he is already well out on that limb about, hey, okay, now we're going to secure the border first, and then only after that's secure are we going to talk about the 11 million, which sounds really familiar. I've heard that elsewhere.
I have as well. The thing to keep in mind, Megan, is why people want a wall in the first place. You can tell whether a wall is there or not. It's not a group of bureaucrats in Washington saying the border is secure. It's either there or it isn't. That's why voters have supported it, and that's the reason that he became the Republican nominee.
But on the 11 million, I mean, that position of we secure the border first and then we talk about the 11 million is basically what every single candidate running for president had on the Republican side, is it not?
It really is, and it's one of the reasons why I think that you see the kind of muddying now, the confusion among some of Trump's supporters who are basically saying to themselves, was he just trying to pull another con job on us? Is this a situation where we can trust him on this issue, one that has been a signature of his to this point?
All right, we're going to hear more about it from the candidate himself on Wednesday, who will clarify his positions on all of this. We'll look forward to that. Ben, great to see you.
Good to be with you.
So there's new controversy erupting over race in America, involving both Beyonce and the message she brought to the awards that we just saw, and Colin Kaepernick, the star quarterback, who is now refusing to stand for the national anthem, arguing that the American flag represents oppression. Pete Hegseth and Eric Guster weigh in next. Developing tonight, the debate over race and law enforcement heating up again, following some highly controversial protests from a couple of highly paid famous faces. It all started Friday night when multi-million-dollar NFL quarterback Colin Kaepernick refused to stand for the national anthem to protest what he calls the oppression of black people. And then last night at the Video Music Awards, Beyonce's performance appeared to show angels being shot dead, collapsing into a pool of make-believe blood, which viewers believe was meant to represent police brutality. Trace Gallagher has the new fallout tonight. Trace?
Megan, this is Colin Kaepernick's 6th year in the NFL, but the first year he's decided to sit for the national anthem. He says it took time for him to decide how to express himself. And even if he loses endorsements or his job, he says he is not changing his tune. Watch.
When there's significant change, and I feel like that flag represents what it's supposed to represent, and this country is representing people the way that it's supposed to, I'll stand.
Across the country, most support his right to protest. Some even support the protest itself, but much of the reaction has been very angry, from fans burning his jersey to fellow players calling him out. New Orleans Saints quarterback Drew Brees saying, quote, "It's an oxymoron that you're sitting down disrespecting that flag that has given you the freedom to speak out." Kaepernick has clarified his comments, saying he has great respect for the military, but listen to a Gold Star mom talking about the flag and her son who was killed in Afghanistan.
The flag that I see is the flag that draped my son's casket in honor, and I see the flag that was handed to my husband and I with deep respect from a grateful nation. When I look at the flag, I see the best of us.
At the Video Music Awards, Beyonce made her own statements. First by you. We should finally note, Megan, that if Colin Kaepernick loses his job, it will not be because of his protest. His performance on the field has continued to slide. Megan.
Trace, thank you. Joining us now, Pete Hegseth, a Fox News contributor, as well as a veteran of the Iraq and Afghanistan wars, and Eric Guster, an attorney and political commentator. Great to see you both. Pete, your reaction when you saw Kaepernick refuse to stand as a war vet yourself?
Ungrateful, uninformed about what that flag really means. I use the basic test of conduct. Is what you're doing something you would do in front of your own mother? In this case, would you do that in front of the graves of the fallen, in front of that Gold Star mother, in front of wounded veterans, in front of the families of fallen cops who have given so much for that flag? Listen, you want to protest, you've got issues with this country, fine, you can protest. They've purchased that right for you. But have enough respect, enough gratitude for the freedom you have to do that, to stand, look at that flag and salute it, understanding that we all work to make it better. Mm-hmm. This country has had problems with race. We understand that. We can fix it and improve it. But have some gratitude, have some respect, stand up, salute the flag, and show some respect for the country that we should all love.
What about that, Eric? It's, you know, no one ever claimed that America was perfect, but we love our country. We respect our country and the core values for which we stand, and we respect the sacrifices men and women in uniform have made to protect what we stand for. And that's why people rise to their feet. That you don't have to sign on to everything happening in the United States at the time.
But if a person is aggravated about the things such as oppression that Colin Kaepernick spoke so eloquently about, they have the right to protest. And the rights that people died for are not necessarily
but there's no question he has the
embellished
right.
by so many Americans.
He has
so
the right.
many Americans do not
enjoy those rights. The question is whether he should have done it.
No, oh yes, he should have done it, because it takes people like Colin Kaepernick, like Beyonce, to speak out about oppression, to speak out about people not being treated fairly, to speak out about inequality in the school systems, in race relations, in police protections. Because these people, yes, they have money. People said, oh, they have $60 million types of contracts, but those are the people who get the attention to bring the attention to the issues. Because if he did not talk about it, if he did not protest it, we may not be talking about this right now.
We've been talking, Eric, we've been talking about it. We've had a gigantic national conversation. This is and you want to talk about race. You want to talk about people that have seen past race. This guy's mother and his black father abandoned him. 2 white parents took him in and gave an opportunity to rise, have social mobility in a country.
So
where that
because
doesn't
2
happen.
white people took him in, that's an excuse?
No, not an excuse. Let's see past race and give everybody an opportunity. You want to live in a police state?
When you are a black man, Pete,
across the world where you really are oppressed by the police.
Go ahead,
When
Eric.
you are a black man, you can't see past race because people are seeing you as a threat. When you go into a store, you're followed. When you're driving, you have a higher rate of a higher chance to be stopped and harassed by police. You have much more of a chance to be shot by police. That's the reality of being a black man like I am. I'm in Birmingham, Alabama right now, the seed of civil rights, the place where civil rights was fought and constantly being fought right now, Pete. So it's hard for you. You cannot try to lecture someone about this.
I can't put myself in your shoes every day, Eric, but 53 years ago, Martin Luther King gave a speech talking about how he wants his 4 children to be judged by the content of their character, not the color of their skin. And the more we emphasize the color of skin and emphasize racial differences, we get further away from that dream. Why are we talking more and more about what separates us as opposed to the equal justice we should appeal to? Martin Luther King appealed to our founding premise when searching for equality. Colin Kaepernick could make that same case. Hey, let's do better in a way that doesn't demean our country, which is exactly what he does when he sits on his pathetic butt on the sidelines before a game rather than saluting a flag which many died to preserve, including those in the civil rights era.
What about that, Eric?
The
Gold Star moms, Eric, with the Gold Star mother's reaction, you know, her son was killed, and they gave her that American flag to honor his sacrifice and all he died for. And there are unfortunately, a lot of Gold Star families just like her who felt disrespected in that moment.
And I understand that because they played the ultimate sacrifice, but that sacrifice is based upon the right to protest, just like Colin Kaepernick did. So many people have fought, black, white, Asians, Hispanics have all fought in our army and our armed forces, but that gives him the right, and that's the most important thing. We are under protection of equal rights, but we simply don't have them. It's based upon the culture.
Just because he has the right doesn't make it right, and that's, I think, what a lot of people feel in this instance.
Guys, thank you both.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Also tonight, the University of Chicago taking a stand when it comes to the cupcakes on campus. And James Rosen has the school's powerful anti-PC message for incoming students. I wish I were 18 years old again and much smarter than I actually was and was applying to schools. That's where I'd want to go, University of Chicago. I never could have gotten in there. Plus, a Trump tweet raises eyebrows and makes headlines with how he reacted to the murder of an NBA star's cousin. Chris Steyerwalt on whether tweets like this help or hurt Trump's outreach efforts. Stay tuned. New reaction tonight to a weekend of street violence that closes out the deadliest month in Chicago in nearly 2 decades. And that's saying something. From Friday through Sunday, gun violence left at least 10 dead and 60 wounded. Think about that. Among the murdered is Nakia Aldridge. She's a Chicago native and cousin of Chicago Bulls star Dwayne Wade. The killing of this mother of 4 was quickly mentioned by Donald Trump, and the story took off from there. Mike Tobin has more live from Chicago. Mike?
Hi, Megan. This sad murder got political rather quickly. Jesse Jackson just weighed in again, calling for a White House conference on violence. But as you mentioned, it was Donald Trump who dragged it into the arena, both over Twitter and on the stump. His Saturday tweet read, Dwayne Wade's cousin was shot and killed walking her baby in Chicago. Just what I've been saying. African Americans will vote Trump. And one today reading, inner city crime is reaching record levels. African Americans will vote for Trump because they know I will stop the slaughter going on.
Failed Democratic policies, the policy of Hillary Clinton, have created this high crime and crushing poverty, absolutely crushing poverty. In so many communities under Democratic control, we have bad schools, no jobs, high crime, and no hope. It can't get any worse.
As far as what Mr. Trump said, I don't have a whole lot of comment on that. If you have a magic bullet to stop the violence anywhere, not just in Chicago, but in America, then please share it with us.
The suspects in this case, the Sorrells brothers, Darren and Darwin, career criminals at age 26 and 22, both violent felons, both according to police, documented gang members, both of them out on parole, one of them wearing his ankle monitor at the time of the shooting. Police Superintendent Eddie Johnson says they're examples of people who don't do their whole sentence, don't care who they shoot, and don't fear the consequence of their actions, certainly not from the justice system. A spokesman for the police says 64 people were shot this weekend in Chicago. 8 of them died of their wounds, and an overwhelming majority of them were known to police because the people involved in the shootings are often the targets of the shootings. Still, the spokesman complains all police can do is arrest them. They cannot make violent criminals do their entire sentence. Megan?
Wow. Mike, thank you. Joining us now with more, Fox News digital politics editor Chris Steyerwalt. Chris, good to see you. So Trump came under fire for the charge was that he politicized this murder by immediately coming out and writing what he wrote. It was a while later that he came out to say, you know, my condolences. Several hours after the initial tweet, my condolences to Dwayne Wade and his family. We've seen politicians do it before.
Racial outreach for white politicians especially is tricky, whether it's on the city, state, or federal level. This is not easy to do. Now, obviously, you don't do it that way. You don't jump on something so fast and politicize murder, especially when you're talking about so many people killed in Chicago, et cetera, et cetera. It is part of a larger piece for Trump that I think is good for him and is helpful for his cause, and that is not that he's going to do particularly well with black voters. When we see him headed to Detroit this weekend for more outreach into the black community, it's not that we expect him to do well or even better, particularly with black voters, but it is that he can assuage the consciences of white suburbanites who are worried about the fact that Hillary Clinton says he's a racist, much of the press says that he's racist, and so much of this campaign is surrounded in racism. His very outreach to black voters, the fact that he continues to do it, that may help him with those white suburbanites.
Well, there's no question that outreach to the black voters is a great idea, no matter whether you're Republican or Democrat. And Trump should have been doing it, you know, for a while now. But when you look at some of the response to what he just did from the African American community, it's alarming. I mean, you come to fully understand how deeply offensive and problematic they found that tweet, at least many folks did. I'm just looking at this, the latest coming in. Here's something from Don Cheadle. Well, this is actually from Saturday, but he writes, "You are truly a piece of you know what."
Yeah.
And then he goes on. Holly Robinson Pete, she tweeted, "I'm just so I'm just so offended by this. I can barely breathe. Prayers and condolences go out. Calling him an absolute disgrace. Saw a lot of that. I don't know. I mean, was it the timing of it? Was it the sweeping?
The subject.
You know, that African Americans will vote Trump. What was it?
It is the subject matter, and it is politicizing a murder, and it's doing it so fast. It undermines that larger effort, which Ben Carson and others are helping him with, to try to do this broader, more sensitive, more kind-hearted outreach that he says he wants to do, that he's trying to do. You do one tweet like that, that's what the press will seize on. That's what happens, and that is you rob yourself of opportunities.
Great to see you, Chris. Up next, the University of Chicago and why you should send your kids there. No more safe spaces.
This program is brought to you by Liberty Mutual Insurance. Liberty. From the world headquarters of Fox News, it's The Kelly File with Megyn Kelly.
And now to the University of Chicago, where the school is defying a national trend and daring to tell students they will not find any safe spaces or trigger warnings on this campus. For more, I'm joined by Chief Washington correspondent James Rosen. Hi, James.
Megyn, good evening. You know, if you've been watching this trend on college campuses over the past several years, and you've been wondering when someone in a position of authority would finally stand up and say, in effect, that he's mad as hell and he's not going to take it anymore, this is your story. As if parting the heavens, this mild-looking academician, Jay Ellison, Dean of Students at the University of Chicago, has struck what champions of free speech on college campuses regard as the biggest blow of the decade against the stifling effect of political correctness run amok. In a letter to the class of 2020, Ellison touted the university's commitment to academic diversity, warning freshmen rigorous debate, discussion, and even disagreement may challenge you and even cause discomfort. In an era when liberal students across the country have sought and received the creation of safe spaces, zones where they can be shielded from ideas they regard as hurtful to their psyche, and demanded trigger warnings, advance notice from professors when their curricula could prompt an adverse emotional response, the Ellison letter served notice that the University of Chicago isn't having any of it. We do not support so-called trigger warnings. We do not cancel invited speakers because their topics might prove controversial, and we do not condone the creation of intellectual safe spaces where individuals can retreat from ideas and perspectives at odds with their own.
This is actually one of the best steps I've seen a university take to say, you know what, this is, the education, if done right, is actually going to be uncomfortable.
The empire of academia strikes back, however. Michael Roth, president of Wesleyan University, told the New York Times the Ellison letter was a publicity stunt designed to, quote, coddle donors.
Instead of saying we don't believe in safe zones, he's actually creating a safe zone, and that's a safe zone for racism, homophobia, sexism on his college campus.
Administrators at the University of Chicago countered that their embrace of free speech does not confer on anyone the freedom to threaten or harass. Megyn.
I love Jay Ellison. I wish my kids were graduating sooner. They're like class of 2028. It's not soon enough. I want them there while Jay is there, James.
I think first, really, Megyn, you need to focus on something called the SATs, and then eventually you'll get to where you're talking about.
But that nonsense about you're making a safe space for racism and sexism, that what they're trying to do is shore people up for real life. Tough conversations on difficult subjects, which we have to deal with in real life.
I consider this conversation itself one of those right now, and I think I had trigger warnings somewhere around 4 o'clock today. But look, the University of Chicago points out that the professors there retain, as they put it, broad freedom in how they address any concerns their students may have about the curriculum. So if a professor really wants to give a trigger warning, he or she may do so.
Yeah, that's like my Dianetics, only it's true and not weird. Still up, Gene Wilder, don't go away.
What happened?
He lived happily ever after.
Gene Wilder, bless you. And from this girl from upstate New York who you helped convince that anything is possible, thank you.
Tonight, in Donald Trump.